to give a big welcome to Maureen Surin. She is here to share a little bit of her story and to share a little bit of the hope that she's received, hoping to pass that forward. And I just want to thank you, Maureen, for being with us today. I know you're busy, and I appreciate that you have taken the time to share the hope that you've found, and hopefully this will encourage some listeners. Let's go ahead and just start at the beginning. Would you share a little bit about your family now?
Sure. Well, we live in Chicago, Illinois, and my husband, Jim, and my daughter, Ashley, and I, it's been difficult. She was diagnosed with leukemia at age 2.5, and life completely changed at that point. We didn't even see that coming. And December 8/08 was the day life changed for us. But she went through a lot of different chemo medicines from December 2008 through, I believe it was March of 2011. And basically 9 months into the chemotherapy, she developed seizures. So at that point, we started some anti-seizure neuromedicines. We thought, maybe this will just be temporary. They believe she had a side effect, reaction from one of the medicines during chemo. And so we thought, okay, maybe, if they stop that or time goes by, she won't keep having these and we won't need all the neuromedicines and such. But unfortunately for Ash and us, it kept going. The seizures kept coming. They were daily. They were drop seizures. They were blinking episodes. She would either collapse. She would need us to shadow her 24/7. And as she got older, they only got harder to control. So they kept adding in another medicine and another medicine. And, then school comes along and, it's hard. Her stability, her mobility was really compromised. She had several falls in school. We had a gait belt on her and a helmet on her. I would say her speech was highly impacted. She wasn't speaking in full sentences, and it was very choppy. We don't know if that was from the chemo or the neuromeds, but anyways, my husband just walked in the room too, by the way. So yeah, she went through a lot of medicines for the first several years during her chemo. And after her chemo ended in, it was March of 2011, the seizures remained. The cancer we beat, thank you, God. We beat the ALL leukemia, but the seizures remained and were hard to control. So
it's so hard. It's like you overcame one huge thing that is like a parent nightmare. It must have been so scary. And you were probably, I imagine, making progress. And then in the middle of it, it's like this huge other wave comes. And now you're dealing with seizures.
Yes.
Or other issues possibly from the seizures. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that time when she was, you said she beat the cancer. So she was cancer-free at what age?
Let's see. We had chemotherapy from December 2008 through March of 2011. So she had weekly chemotherapy visits in 2009, weekly. She had a push into, she had a port in her chest and a weekly push. Sometimes she had spinals and extra little bonus IV days and such. We had some days when her platelets were off, we would have to do, transfusions, and if her counts were off. Then 2008, I'm sorry, 2009, 2010, she had to go monthly to chemo visits. And we also did, she did pills at home for all during chemo too. So we had a regime for, the hospital, regime for home. So it was, monthly in 2010. And then in 2011, it was just the first quarter monthly, January, February, March. And then we were done. But, again, she had seizures through all those, from September 2009 all the way through, the end of chemo and on. And we were seeing a neuro, doctor too. And nobody could ever, predict if these were going to go away, what really caused them, how do we stop them? We did play around a little with her diet, but nothing was really helping So we were up to 3 medicines for her. And yeah, she luckily, thank you God, beat the cancer, but was left with these uncontrollable seizures. So, now she's getting older now. And well, we went on from how old she was. That was around 5.5, 6. So from like age 6 all the way through age 11, 12, she was up and down all these neuromedicines. And it was a nightmare because for her, it meant it affected her sleep, affected her school, affected her play, affected, social life, and holidays and all the things kids love to enjoy, with family. So it was different. But then as puberty was coming along, the seizures got really, really difficult to manage. And they wanted to add a fourth medicine in there. My daughter had a concussion and brain surgery in 2017. And my husband and I just like in the hospital fell into each other's arms, just saying, enough's enough, you know? And so we knew at that point in time, that was like the breaking point. We're like, we have to do something different, or we're not going to have our daughter here with us. So I feel like that concussion was a big revelation to us to take a big left turn away from all the medicine she was on and see naturopaths. And they amazingly, it was really cool. 2 naturopaths that were actually friends, but in completely two different offices from each other, said, your daughter needs to consume cannabis and possibly go on a low carb or keto diet. And all I could think of was like, wow, hard and harder,
Yeah,
and
right.
so
She was 12 at the time to go on a keto
yeah,
diet.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know what it was. So, I mean, it was a lot of research. And God bless, my sister actually was helping us watch her at the time. I spoke to my boss and said, I really need to take my daughter out of school and put her on this diet. We're going to try some hemp. And wouldn't you know that as soon as we tweaked her diet a little, the blinking episodes were getting less. The seizures weren't as frequent. They were there, but they weren't as frequent. We
Wow.
did try her on a little hemp from the doctor. And so we still noticed, though, she was still seizing at night.
Okay.
So I said to the doctor, what do we do? What's next? And she said, I think your daughter needs full plants. And I'm like, can you tell me what that means in English? And she says she needs medical cannabis, more THC. So we applied for her license in, I believe it was September, October. It took over 100 days, which to me was such a shame, but they've since improved that in our state. So thank God. But I manually filled out all the papers, had the doctors, do their thing, mailed it in. My husband and I had to go get fingerprinted, I believe it was, and take pictures and sent it all into the state. And finally, after calls and calls and emails, it finally got approved. And then when I got the license, I went into the dispensary and said, I'm new. What do you recommend? I've got, a 13-year-old. What do you give to a 13-year-old with seizures, epileptic seizures? And they, it's really trial and error. And they said, well, the simplest thing we have, is either a tincture or a patch. And I'm like, a patch? I'm like, I would be interested in seeing that. So it was a high CBD patch, 10 milligrams, which she's still on today. And she wears a full patch on the top of her foot from like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Whenever she gets up, 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock, she wears that patch on her foot. It's a slow release CBD patch. And then at night, she does a half a patch. I cut a new patch in half, give her half a patch on. I usually rotate feet, so there's just a little bit of a break in each foot for a while.
Sure.
And then I give her a drop of RSO on either a cracker or a chocolate chip right before bed. And my daughter's been 3.5 years seizure free.
That is amazing. And how old is she now?
She's 15. March 29th, she just turned 15.
15. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you started this, did you see immediate results or did it take a while?
Um, I saw immediate results with like going on the keto. The keto is very strict diet, with counting all the carbs and such and calculating, kind of you have to kind of do yourself a little template and keep a journal. Um, but we ended up moving her more to the gluten-free world and organic world. And I mean, the whole world's kind of doing that now. I think everybody knows you really have to read labels and know what you're putting in your body because there's so many chemicals and things, and you really got to watch.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she's been a good kid. I let her splurge and have, one favorite fast food place a week.
I love it.
and and she loves, loves, loves guacamole from Chipotle. I think she should be their little guacamole girl. I mean,
They're
she should
guacamole girl.
she should. I mean,
Yeah.
she ate it all through chemotherapy. We'd be driving home from the hospital and she'd say, "Mom, stop for guac, stop for guac."
Mm.
And I can't get that out of my head. Like,
And you were probably like, yes, I'll do anything. I mean,
oh
at
my
that point,
God.
you're
Well,
willing
it
to
was,
do
it
anything.
was, we did. And we used to stop for guac every time too, because I couldn't not fulfill her heart. And we'd stop weekly at this one Chipotle, and the guy we'd walk in. It was almost like the bartender and knew your drink. He would just roll three guacamoles to us and say, "Here, Ashley,
My
on
regular.
the house."
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah, I
love
mean, she
that.
really loved her guacamole. Still loves her guacamole on Taco Tuesdays. She wants me to go get her guacamole. So, hey, but she's been through a lot. I mean, the chemo days were tough because as you've heard, I'm sure before, your diet just goes up and down when you're on chemotherapy, and the doctors are just like, eat whatever you want, whatever you can tolerate. And dairy products are hard, but a lot of kids tend to love dairy products as kids, and we push them, but then that doesn't always agree with chemotherapy. So it was tough. She had some rough times with blood counts and getting sick and nauseous, but she was such a trooper. And then finally finding the two naturopaths that just basically saved her life. I mean, it was just amazing. And I mean, we were so excited when we found the naturopaths and found that the CBD was helping, but we weren't sure, when we went into the medical, what it was going to mean. You don't know until every medicine out there might have there's no perfect medicine, but to me, this really is a perfect medicine. At least for my daughter, it's changed her life. We got off all of the neuromeds. It took about a month of medicine to get off the neuromeds, and her neuro doctor didn't really want us to do that, but I worked with the naturopath, and the naturopath said, "Maureen, drop a schedule of, come down on one, go up on the CBD, come down on one, go up on the CBD." And we did that, and it was perfect. I mean, it was tricky. There were some breakthroughs on one of the meds that she had been on the longest. I won't name the meds, but yeah, one of the meds that she was on a long time that we knew we were going to have a hard time getting off of. I literally broke down in tears, like, "Oh no, it's not going to work." And the doctor said, "Don't lose hope." She goes, "Give her a little more CBD for a few days and watch her tolerance build up on that CBD, and maybe she just will break through that." I think they call it, what do they call it? I can't think of the right word, but when you've been on a medicine, like withdrawal, it's almost like a withdrawal reaction that, hey, you're coming down on this medicine, but your body wants it. So, but luckily we were able to get over that hump of those breakthrough with that other medicine, and stay on the CBD. And she got off of 3 neuromeds in 3 months. So, and they're all gone. There are no more neuromeds in our life. It's just, she's on a low thyroid armor pill, vitamin D, and medical cannabis, good diet, good sleep. And that's it.
It's miraculous. It sounds amazing, and it must be amazing for you to see her now
Yeah.
versus to
I
remember
mean,
how it was and where she was. And I just think about the quality of life. I mean, her quality of
oh,
life is totally different, but I'm thinking about yours as well as a parent. That must have been scary. It must have been, you couldn't turn off, I'm sure, through the night.
No,
And
it
so,
was like, yeah, it was like starting to walk through a tunnel and you can't go back. Like once you start, you keep going until you get to the other side. And we didn't know what was going to happen when we tried the medical, but we just kept pushing. And Ashley was such a little trooper with it all. And God helped us through that. I mean, it was tricky. I have to say, we were scared. We didn't know what to try for like middle of the day when she was having those breakthroughs. I went to the dispensary and bought a little lotion to put on her wrist. So that was kind of a middle of the day. If there's anxiety, we put it on her wrist and we squirt it on her wrist and say, Ash, rub, rub it together, done, and she can do it. So, but then when she did have her last breakthrough or her last seizure, let me think, it was January of 2018. We grabbed a tincture and gave her 1 ml under her tongue, and it did stop the seizure. So basically, we knew, okay, so now she's got the patch on her foot, and sometimes if we need the lotion in the day, that was going to be perfect. But then when we thought, how do we get back to school? And that's where we kind of bumped into, the whole loss situation. And we had to, we talked to the superintendent, and he said, well, I'm really sorry. I wish I could help you, Mr. and Mrs. Surin, but there's a law. And I said, well, wait a minute. This is a medicine. This is a state program. I'm in a state public school. What am I missing?
so basically,
why?
you finally found the medicine, like you finally found something that would help her, something that was giving you hope, something that was bringing relief. She was off of these medicines, and
Mm-hmm.
she was thriving. Like her quality of life was great. The problem
Oh,
is
yeah.
they couldn't give it to her at school because of the law. Is that correct?
Right. And she really probably legally couldn't, I mean, unless, I didn't tell them, that patch on her foot would be illegal too, because no cannabis was allowed on school grounds. So she would have been illegally wearing cannabis. And not that, even if I didn't tell, what if they were just in gym class, changing their socks, and someone said, oh, that girl's got cannabis, and I mean, it just takes one parent to, raise a stink, and then attorneys and superintendents and the law, everyone's involved, and it's ugly.
And that's like the last
So
journey.
no,
You've been through
exactly,
the cancer,
exactly.
you've been through, yeah, the seizures, and now the school's not
Yeah.
gonna let you do it. So how did you overcome that? What steps did
Um,
you take? And tell us a little bit about that.
I think I thought about, what would my mom and dad do? They're up in heaven, God rest their souls. And I thought, you know what? This is my child. We have to fight for her. And I told that superintendent, I respect you. I respect the laws, but, I need to figure out what rights my child has here. And so I said, I'm going to discuss it with some legal consultants and see what they say. And he said, I don't blame you, Mrs. Surin. If it were my child, I would do the exact same thing, and, keep us informed. They were supportive as far as they could, up to that law, because the law was blocking them too.
I read somewhere that one quote that I loved was, I think you said, it wasn't us against them, it was us against the law. So it sounds like
Right.
just done with such respect and honor, but this is my child and this is her right.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like the school was completely, you know, um, wanting to help her. And just since the law was blocking her, they were grateful that we sued, because they wanted this resolved, like you said earlier, not just for Ashley, but for other kids that need it and want it and can't come forward with it because the law was blocking them. And it's really no different than all the other medicines at school that are just as strong with, side effects as well. So this shouldn't be any different. It's a new medicine, and the laws really needed to catch up with reality. I mean, it's a state program now. It was a pilot program when Ashley started it, but in 2019 it became permanent, and we were there for the signing of that too. And that's when, it was in stone. Her law was passed in 18, but then in 19 they amended it, tweaked it up a little bit, protecting the nurses, protecting the staff. and basically made the cannabis program in our state permanent, not pilot. So everything's been running really smooth. So we're really blessed.
That is fabulous. So like in summary, Ashley's Law allows the school to give the student an approved medical marijuana dosage. Is that correct? The nurse can give it to the child, is that correct?
Yeah, a cannabis infused product. So they can't smoke it. It would have to be, a topical, a tincture, a patch, something, that they would wear, or if it's an edible, it'd have to be something that is approved for children in the programs. It protects the administration who would be able to give it to her, whoever they choose to assign, in the school. Because the secretary may not necessarily be an admin, but the next person down the hall would be, the principal would be. So it depends on who they consider administration. And so they're protected. They would store it and lock it in the nurse's office. It's also allowed on the buses. So, Ashley could ride to school and go on field trips. And then the bus driver is also going to be, from what I understand, they were in the middle of training them last year in her old district, and then COVID hit. So they did stop that. But from what I hear now, her current district, we just started a new district this year because she's in high school. They are all trained and ready for the buses to, help her in the case of an emergency. So parents would not need to hire a nurse or a caregiver to get on the buses. So it's beautiful the way the law has been rolling out.
And then Ashley and other students can go on field trips and can be at school just like any other child. And
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the horror stories in some states, even in mine. I know a friend in another suburb, her school's giving her a hard time. And they make her take her child 1,000 feet off school grounds, give it to her child, and bring her back in. I mean, that's wrong.
Even with Ashley's Law.
Well, there's a little resistance. So basically, I believe it's ironed out now though, because Ashley's Law, unlike I think California's law is a opt-in or opt-out. Ashley's Law is a must allow. The school can't say, oh no, we don't want to do that. They have to do it, or they have to hire a third party. So there was a little resistance in a very conservative area in Illinois. But from what I recently understood was the mom was working with the legislator to work with the school and tell the school point blank, you don't have a choice here. If you don't want to do it, you need to hire a third party to come in and do it. The law isn't, you don't get a choice. So there, yeah, there's some friction. So I would advise anyone who's going forward in their state with their laws to make sure that it's written not as an optional opt-in or opt-out. It should be a quote must allow type of law in whatever language, their state writes it in.
Along that line, I assume there are still states where it is not allowed in the schools. Is that correct?
Yes, more states than not. There's only a handful, I think about less than 10, I think, that allow it in. So
how would you encourage a parent whose child is benefiting from medical marijuana? What would you encourage them as they start that journey?
Well, don't give up on it, because it's so worth it, and it's their child and it's their future. And if it's a medicine that's saving their life and changing their life and improving their life, then push your legislators to make a law that allows medical cannabis into the school, administered by the administration, and protects them, and also administered by, transportation buses, and training the bus drivers or an aide on the bus, and make that law a must allow, because I mean, it's life changing for us. I mean, I thought I was going to have to pack up my bags, sell my house, and move out west. And thanks to amazing legislators, we didn't. We got the law written, we got it amended. The school has been trained on it. I think they roll out training every year at the beginning of the year. From what I understand, every school has mandated training in their schools, even if they don't have a child yet, so that they're ready, because tomorrow, Jane Doe could walk in and say, here's my license, I need this, and they have to be ready.
So for a parent who is trying to figure out how to go forward with the legislative battle, how would they reach out for help? Is there somebody who could help them walk through it? Is there somewhere they could look for some insight or guidance?
That's a good question, because I myself struggled when we were trying to find an attorney to take on this battle. So I literally started with my best friend who was an attorney, and she turned me to the Board of Education and said, hey, Maureen, I have a friend. And I said, that's great. Let me give him a call. And it turned out they wanted to just make an exception for Ashley. And you know what? I would say, don't fight for an exception. You want it to be the norm. And I told my friend, with all due respect, and this gentleman, I would love it to get through for her, but I don't want it to be a temporary thing or just for her. I want it to be the norm. This could be her medicine the rest of her life. So any school she walks in any city of the state, I don't want to be given a hard time, or her. And so I think you really have to hunt out like special needs attorneys and see, who can help you out, because they're out there. I mean, I lucked out and found one through Ashley's doctor, and originally, they wanted a lot of money. And I said, I don't have that. I would have to mortgage my house to get you that. And they called us back a couple of days later and said, we want to help you. We want to help Ashley. This is an amazing case, and we want to help you fight this battle. So just for our court fees, they did it. So we were really blessed. And yeah, so I would say, hunt out, special needs attorneys. I'm sure every state has their share of those types of attorneys. And those are the attorneys that will know, the special needs laws, and like IDEA came into, the picture for Ashley too, because, there's a lot of rights out there, and some parents just they're not aware of them. And you also want to make sure you have an IEP or a plan for your child in school for their education, and have it in that plan that they need that medicine in school. So that plays into the whole battle too. So we added that to Ashley's IEP as well. And that follows them all through their education years.
That is great. Along the same lines, but going back to the journey of figuring out medical cannabis and the dosage and which type and all of that, for someone who is just starting the journey, I imagine it is extremely overwhelming, and probably less so than it used to be, because there are organizations such as the medical cannabis doctors that do make it a little bit easier, for sure. But it still is a newer way to treat certain issues, certain medical problems. What would you say to somebody who is just now starting this journey of looking into medical cannabis? Where should they go for help? How did you find your natural doctors? And I know you said it was a lot of trial and error. You asked the people at the dispensary, what do you recommend? What do you have? And just kind of try it. What do you wish someone had said to you at the beginning?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, I guess, finding the right doctors is a big thing, because those doctors, like in the state of Illinois, I think every state's a little different. For a minor, you need 2 certifications. So, and it's a lot of money. So, you pay this doctor a fee, you pay this doctor a fee. And then when you actually start the medical cannabis, the doctors may know that your child needs to be on the medical cannabis, but they won't necessarily know, okay, go buy, Johnson's patch of this strength, they don't.
Uh-oh, I think we We lost you. Can you hear me?
We asked,
Oh,
they call it,
can you hear
did
me?
we,
Oh, I'm
we
sorry.
froze.
You
I think we
totally cut out.
froze.
You,
We
I'm sorry.
froze. I'm
We
sorry.
froze too. Yes, you froze or I froze. I may have done it. But would you go back to where you said like they probably won't know the exact dosage or type, but when you find a doctor who can kind of direct you.
Yeah, so yeah, the doctors actually may know that you actually need to go start medical cannabis, but they may not know exactly which products per se for you to try. They may say, go try something, sativa or indica or high CBD or low THC or high, they may tell you that. But there's so many, when you go into just a dispensary, you get like a menu and there's so much on there, it's overwhelming. So I would say try and speak to a well-informed, they call them bud tenders over there at the dispensary, and see who really has experience with a child, in a similar situation as yours. And if it's not the person you're talking to, ask for someone who has, worked with another family that might have, came to buy for a child. Because I think I was just fortunate enough to hit a guy that knew his stuff, as well as he had another patient with a child using the patch, and they were having excellent results with it. So I said, okay, so here's the patch. Can I cut it? What do I do with it? Where do I store it? How long does she wear it? What if she goes swimming? All these different rules. And you're either going to get a really new person that doesn't quite know all the things on the shelf yet, or you're going to get someone who's been there and been down that path with another family. So, if you get a really experienced person that just at the dispensary, I think that's great. There's Facebook groups out there too. I would say the medical cannabis community on Facebook is amazing. I've been in that for years, and they actually they monitor the site really well in terms of keeping it clean and professional and helpful. I'm always reading it, and there's legislators on there and doctors, so it's there are some books and some websites out there, but I think, it just depends on, how the person wants to go about researching it. It is trial and error. Cannabis is different for every person because it's based on your inflammation. So, your inflammation and mine are completely different. So we might react completely different to a product, so they're still studying it out there, but I would say I think the trial and error game is as hard as it is. I would say keep a journal. If somebody's starting at a dispensary, say, January 1, I bought this, I tried this on my child. Keep a journal, because I did that in the beginning with Ashley too, when we started the cannabis. And that was a big help too, for me to know what didn't work, what did. And if the doctor comes back and says, what happened on this day, and then you can go back to a journal and see.
I imagine
So
that's a great tip. I imagine that's very helpful, especially if you're trying to do food, possibly other medicines, and the cannabis, trying to
yes.
figure out what's what and what's happening. I imagine it also, when you said that about the Facebook group, I imagine it would be very helpful to have a community of people who possibly have like a child in the same situation as your child, or they're individually going through the same thing. Is there anything like that out there, or is that Facebook group that type of community where you can find people like you?
Yeah, there's more groups out there. Off the top of my head, I don't know the names of all of them, but there are several of those out there. Like there's one for autism, I know, because Ashley is on the spectrum for autism. So I think I'm in another autism group as well. And I'm sure there's some local groups for, different types of ailments out there too that people start. But I try and keep my head out of my phone all day too. So my
I
daughter
know. I
gets
know.
some mommy,
Yeah.
mommy FaceTime.
So
But
tell me,
yeah, it's hard.
how is Ashley doing now?
Oh, she's doing amazing. She's actually on an after school support program right now. She's on Zoom from 7:30 till 12:15 every day for school. They take a 15-minute break in between classes. It's freshman year high school for her. She loves school. she can't stop talking in classes. I'm sure I'm going to get that on the report card at some point. But you know what? I'm going to say 5 years ago, my kid couldn't speak in full sentences. So you know what?
Absolutely. I'll take
Take it.
it.
So yeah, but she's loving it, and she's been home all through this pandemic. So we're kind of just keeping a really close watch of her. She goes grocery shopping with us. We go on some play dates to the park. We go on walks. Um, she has an amazing bike that we bought at a store in Chicago called the Bike Rack. And it's an adaptive bike with 3 wheels. I think I sent you a picture of it. I'm not sure.
I was just going to say, I remember that picture.
You know, this may sound weird to say, but for years, my husband and I didn't think she could ever ride a bike. And then here comes my tear ducts again. In 2016, when my parents passed away, we decided to invest in this bike because her school had a little demonstration of adaptive bikes, and we fell in love with the thought of her being able to ride a 3-wheel bike. And so we took a trip out to the store and they fitted her, and it's been amazing. It was like a $1,500 bike. And we may never have to buy another bike again for her or us, because it's really a cool bike. We've all taken rides on it, and she can learn to like hand-eye steer with it. She can ring a bell on it. She can pedal. It's exercise. And for years, when you think about children that are compromised or have gone through amazing, just unbelievable, surgeries or medicine treatments that compromise their balance and their hand-eye and their motor skills, to put them on these adaptive bikes is just like they're in heaven. I mean, my daughter really couldn't she couldn't really do the bikes with the training wheels, so we kind of gave up on those and tried the adaptive bike. And once we have it in the shop now, getting it a little tune up, but she wants it back so fast. She loves it. And we're learning to help her brake with it. She can't really turn corners just yet or brake. But we're working on that. But she can definitely pedal and hold the handlebars and ring the bell. So the neighbors all see her and hear her coming when she's coming. But we're with her. We walk behind her. They built the bike really cool. There's a brake on the back for us, and there's a brake on the front for her. So if she can't brake while we're trying to teach her, we can always brake in the back. So it's cool.
Been so empowering for her to be able to make a bike work, and for you to see. I mean, you have hit so many obstacles, but then you have seen so many victories. It's very exciting to hear your story. I hope that people that listen to your story find that hope and feel kind of that spark of hope, and then just are inspired to fight that fight that you've fought. And because it sounds like it is so worthwhile.
I mean, just I would say, just to keep it short and sweet, when you get so many medicines in your life and you just don't feel like they're working, don't be afraid to try a natural diet, natural medicine. I mean, go for it. What have you got to lose? I mean, if nothing else has worked, go with your gut. And when 2 homeopathic naturalistic doctors told us that, we thought, we have to try this. We have to. Natural diet, natural medicine. I mean, put on a little courage hat too with it, and go for it. And I mean, just to watch what we watched, it was like watching a miracle happen before our eyes.
I bet it's exciting to hear about, and it's inspiring to hear what you did for your daughter, and to hear of just the victories that you had in that. Just a couple other random questions. First of all, how would parents find out what their state allows regarding schools and cannabis without having to walk up to the school and ask? Because that might feel a little awkward.
Good question. I would go on their Department of Health website and kind of search through that, because actually Ashley's Law is actually mentioned on our site, and the specifics about it are on there too, if people are looking for specifics about Ashley's Law in Illinois. But if it's not clear to them or they can't find it, I would call their Department of Health and ask, because I'm pretty sure every state, when people get cards, they're going through a division that's underneath their Department of Health. So the cards are issued, the cannabis cards, at least in Illinois, are issued through our Department of Health, the cannabis division. So I would think that every state has some kind of cannabis division under their Department of Health, organization umbrella.
That sounds perfect. Would you also tell me, I know your husband is doing a podcast. You are both advocates for medical cannabis where it is beneficial. Can you tell me a little bit about his podcast?
Oh yeah, he's like an information, news, pop culture, media junkie. He knows so much information. I I ask him about the weather tomorrow. Today he'll know it. So and he loves reading the paper cover to cover. But yeah, he does podcasts a few days a week for fun. It's on a program called HAPS, HAPPS. They're fairly new, a new platform, and he does, let's see, I believe it's Wednesday night. He does like a meditation night. He's got a name for it that he just changed, and I'm sorry, I don't have it right now. And Thursday he does like a talk show, and he gets some random people, do like the old David Letterman, where you have on a guest and then you have the next guest. The next is they all sit next to each other on the bench. And so he kind of does that with his talk shows. He keeps the one guest on and the next guest, and they all kind of just commingle. And then on Saturday nights, he does trivia night, which is fun. And he usually has Ashley in the background as his little like co-host. And so he does these podcasts, and, he needs sponsors. The sponsors help, as Jim will say on his podcast, they help support, Ashley's medical cannabis fund. And the company will, also pay Jim through that too. So he does 3 different nights of podcasts. It's like one night is just meditation. He's got a candle. He just kind of lets everybody vent, close the computer, turn off the phone, just except for his podcast, of course. But he just gets people to unplug and unwind. And I think it's Wednesday night, and then Thursday's his his talk show, and Saturday's his fun little like game. It's like game show, but kind of like quizzes, and people can type their answers when he gives the question. So it's kind of fun. And Ashley's in the background cheering everyone on. And so
how do I find this if I want to hear, because I do want to hear Ashley, and I would love to hear your podcast as well.
Yeah. If you go on HAPS, HAPPS, he's, I believe, JS in Chicagoland. Jim Surin in Chicagoland is his handle. So I think you just look up Jim or JS when you're in the program and connect with him. And then it'll notify you when he does his podcasts.
I love that. I love that this podcast helps support Ashley's journey and the medical cannabis, but I also love the fact that all that you've fought for and all that medical cannabis has allowed Ashley to now do is probably what's allowing him to do these podcasts that he loves. It sounds like before it was, these seizures were all encompassing, and now it sounds like you're able to live and have quality of life, all of you.
Yeah, we used to have to shadow her. We really were her shadow, and now she can be a lot more independent and healthy, healthy and self-serving, and just enjoy life and be a kid. I mean, she was robbed of so many years, I believe. And, it was hard on us too, because, we had to watch it. You just didn't know when it was coming. And I don't know, it was hard. Her mornings waking up were really difficult. She would have these morning seizures. She would have these on the toilet. She would have them on the bus. I mean, you name it, it was everywhere. And we were in the airport once, and she had one going through security. I mean, here we're in bare feet, in the airport where they had you go, barefoot. And I'm running over to help my daughter in the airport and security. I mean, it was everywhere. So yeah, this plant is, I think God's telling us, hey, people, this plant is miraculous. Let's study it. Let's legalize it. Let's, what really hurts us too, still a little bit, which we'd like to advocate a little bit more for, and if Disney's listen, ding, 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 Disney needs to allow medical cannabis in their parks. They do not. And that's a little heartbreaking because we were Make-A-Wish alums and we want to go back, but their law is preventing us. So in the name of helping, more kids be able to get into Disney, if they need their medicine, please let them in. It's a medicine. And if they have a license that, I think that should be honored. And that's a little bit of a problem. So Disney, if you're listening, please help us. We'll work with you.
You
We
want
can
her
help you make that law. Let's make that another Florida law.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. We're advocating right now for Illinois to get a camp law. We want it allowed in summer camps because I want to get Ashley into some summer classes, but I can't leave her in any camp because they can't administer. There's no law for camps. So, I mean, there's a long way to go with medical cannabis and children and just living life. I mean, travel, everything needs to accept it. It needs to be treated like any other medicine. I'm kids walking into a library. A library is a government building. A post office is a government building. I mean, the kids should be able to be walking into these freely without having to look over their shoulder. So,
And as of now, to walk into a public building besides a school in Illinois, it still is not allowed. Is that correct?
well, now I wouldn't say every public place, but I know government buildings, technically, it would be illegal because that's federal and federal still has it marked, as an illegal medicine or illegal drug. So that needs to change. I mean, it needs to be treated. We shouldn't be on house arrest. It should be treated like every other medicine. We should be able to travel. We should be able to get it insured. Insurance companies, if you're listening, come on, wake up, smell the coffee. I mean, how much money have they saved not spending, 6 digits on my daughter in a hospital the last 5 years compared to, her first 10 years of life? Come on. I mean,
Right.
the proof is in the pudding.
Absolutely. And there is still work to be done for sure.
Lots.
Is there anything else that I did not think to ask that might be helpful?
I can't think of anything. I mean, we just want the world to get more educated on it. We want the laws to catch up with reality. And I really hope parents out there that who are frustrated with, whatever treatment their child's taking, if it's not working, just I don't want to name any specific medicines or anything like that, but just if you feel like something's not working, take a leap of faith, give yourself a little courage lift and try natural diet and natural medicine because it's changed my life and I would never go back.
And is there anything that people can do or say when they are told, my daughter is taking medical cannabis? Do you receive difficult feedback? Do people not understand? What can people do to be understanding and accepting?
You mean in terms of like people who don't know us or people who are against it, or how do you mean?
I guess my question is, do you have any negative feedback when you share that your daughter is taking medical cannabis? Any resistance from that makes you uncomfortable, or are people pretty accepting?
I think people are pretty accepting. I think in the beginning I was nervous because, I grew up in a very conservative Catholic, big family, baby of 9, and I feel like, yeah, back in the day, it was always wrong. It's not studied. There's not enough research. Your children are still growing and such. But, I also feel like if her mind wasn't being altered on the other stuff she was on, then, definitely, I mean, come on, I see her thriving on the cannabis. So I do feel like the world just doesn't understand that if you have an endocannabinoid system, basically this plant can probably help you, and you have to study out how and why. And I feel like the world needs to just really understand their body and what's good for their body. And this is a plant, and again, it does work with the endocannabinoid system, and the world's just not familiar with that enough all over. So,
but we're becoming so interested in all natural products. And so this is the perfect time in history to really focus on a natural solution.
exactly. And I also work for a Colorado hemp-based CBD company called Receptor Naturals. So I love their products. I wholesale for them. I work for them part-time. And, I just encourage people, if you feel like you need to just make a change in your diet or your regime, I mean, why not go with something natural? I feel like for years and years, we've always been told to go to the store and buy this and take this will fix this and this will fix this, but sometimes that's not always the case. I think we have to be more open-minded, and we have to read labels and kind of watch the long-term effects of things, so I don't know. Yeah, I think natural diet, natural medicine is it sounds easy, but it's definitely not. You have to do your research. And with teens, my daughter likes, her junk food, her snacks once in a while, and that's just normal. We'd let her, have her little ice cream splurges every now and then with her friends. That's just living life. But yeah, I'm just so thrilled with how far she's come, and I can't wait to see what she does next. And I feel like this plant gave her a whole new lease on life.
I am so thankful that you have fought like you did, that you have found the victories that you did, and that she has a quality of life like she didn't before, and really that you both have a quality of life like you didn't before. And I just appreciate also that you're willing to share your story and to fight not just for Ashley, but also for other children and individuals who can benefit from medical marijuana. So I just appreciate it. I'm thrilled. I saw the picture of Ashley last night for the first time, and she is
Uh,
absolutely beautiful. There's just such strength in her. And I hope anybody who listens gets a chance to look up the picture of your family, beautiful family, and just feels inspired. I hope they feel inspired by your story. So
uh,
thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Please say hello to Jim and thank him for lending you to us for a little while. And please give Ashley a big hug.
I will. She's the star. Thank you.
Yeah, but I say you both are quite the stars as well. So I appreciate it, and you have a
Thanks for
fabulous
having me.